So who have we got on our meeting today? We have in the room Willowbrook, St Luke's, St Oswald's, St Christopher's, Rowcroft, Peace Hospice, Martletts, Strathcarron, Donna Louise. And it's great all to be here with you. So thank you very much for joining for this, our 8th, I can't believe it, our 8th session. And what we're going to talk about today is emotional labour and the cost, because there is a cost to emotional labour, and I'll tell you a bit more about what that is in a minute. I will start with a photo. Here is my photo, and I was privileged enough to go last week to the Chelsea Flower Show, and I'd never been to the Chelsea Flower Show before, and I have to say I was a little bit ho-hum about it, thinking, oh, it's just going to be some flowers, and my socks were blown off. I was walking around every corner going, oh wow, oh wow. But this, I thought, I like this one particularly, mostly because it reminded me, I'm showing my age here, everyone, of Dame Edna Everage and her gladioli. So I just thought they were amazing as well. So here's a photograph of something that I did last week and sharing it with you because it meant something to me. So our agenda today, what we're going to do, well, I'm just going to give you a quick recap of what we've done to show you the progress we're making. And in our first session, we talked about what resilience was, and we explored in our second one, self-resilience and peer coaching by using a Wheel of Life model. And you can go back and look at any of these if you missed them. You go back and collect them from the website at Hospice UK. The third one, we thought about energy. And the fourth one, we rushed through strengths. And I know that for some people that was a little bit quick, but it was really just to get you thinking about what your strengths are and how you can use them for yourself, and just start thinking about the process, because your strengths are something that do take a little bit of reflection. We thought about control and proactive coping, and then we thought about team resilience and what does it take, and I walked you through a little framework to think about team resilience so you can go back to your teams and work with them. And last time I gave you lots and lots of positive mindset and mind and body tools to think about what would work for you. And for me, what I've been doing since then, I've been doing a lot of Shinrin-yoku and going for walks in the woods. And since I last spoke to you, I've done 5. And I thought, wow, that I'm going to take one thing and just really work on it for me in between the last time and this time. And thank you for those of you who've been in the WhatsApp group sharing your photos. I really enjoy seeing comments and hearing from you. So for those of you who aren't in there, would like to join for the next few weeks, please do so. Marie's got the number and the group, and is custodian of our group. So today we're going to talk about emotional labour, and in the next 2 sessions we're going to be thinking about trust and being valued for what you do and recognition. So that's what we've got coming up. Now, before we get into the meat of it, I always give you a tool, a one-time tool, a quick hit. So last time, I'm sure you'll remember that we talked about how can you reframe the very demanding, the challenging, the lazy, and the person who you might think is failing, or it could be you even. And I asked you to reframe those things, because that is a very important tool that you can use for resilience. But this time I want to continue on that, and I want to continue with using positive language. So I'm going to ask you to reformulate these questions, and I'm going to give you 5 minutes in your group to think, how could you reformulate these questions so that they were in a positive position positively. So let's take 5 minutes to do that. So here are some answers that I had when I was sitting here. So what's stopping you? How could you start? You could also have, how could you push this forward? Or a question that would indicate there was some kind of movement. Because if you say to somebody what's stopping you, it automatically puts them on the defensive. So where's the block? What would it take for you to move forward? How might you make progress in this? Number 3, why haven't you taken action to get this done, right? So what would have to happen for you to want to do this, or what have you done so far? How is it you're still getting this wrong? What else do you need to do it right? What's making you so uncertain? How could you really be sure? So those are some things, and if you found this difficult to do, it's because it's very hard to shift your thinking from negative to positive. And I just wanted to show you that it takes quite a lot of thought to do that. But this is an absolutely fundamental tool for resilience, because if you're negative, remember, negative emotions and feelings are caught to 2 degrees within a social network. So I just want to remind you of that. So if you use negative language, you're going to probably get negativity back. It's very unlikely you're going to get positivity back. So as my daughter said to me 2 days ago, "Mum, you're looking really grumpy." Actually, I'm sorry, it's my natural resting face. And I really had to struggle with myself to not go, "What the bloody hell do you mean?" Because the negativity is immediately pulls us down into something else. So mini tool, positive language where you can. And to catch yourself, you don't have to respond with negativity if someone gives it to you. It's a choice. So as a reminder for the rest of this webinar, I just wanted to move into what resilience is and remind us that it's this capacity to withstand knocks and bounce back or bounce forward in a psychologically healthy manner, because we're going to be talking about a little bit of psychological well-being this time, and how you manage that when you find yourself sliding down a hill, and how you give yourself some emotional first aid, because it's that emotional first aid that you give yourself and you give to others that will help you and them be resilient. So to do that, we've got an agenda for today. We've got 3 main things. We're going to think about emotional labour. We're going to take a little diversion into the personality traits that make us more susceptible to burnout, so that you can recognise that for yourself and from others. And then we're going to think how, when you see or feel burnout happening in yourself, which is very difficult to do, and I wish I had known what the indicators were, because I'm going to share with you now, I've been in burnout twice, and I hope that I would have avoided a 3rd time, because I now know what the indicators are. But then how you then help somebody else if you have a suspicion or feeling, a sense that they might be heading down that slippery slope too. So that's our agenda. As a reminder, for those of you who haven't seen this before, I adore this model, the Vanistendael model, and just to say that we're not working in the basement, the foundation here, although to help someone in burnout, of course, you need relations, family, and acceptance of the state that you or they are in, and you need to be able to make sense. But what we're looking here really is in the attic, about the other experiences that you have to discover and knowledge that you need in order to be able to move forward. So the Casita model is really encompassing everything that we're doing on our 10 webinars. So let's think now about point number 1 and what emotional labour actually is. So when you are doing emotional labour and involved in it, or working with other people, what actually this is all about is the difference between what you really experience internally and what you might have to show. So emotional labour really involves showing something that you might not feel. So when you're tired, when you're fed up, when you've had a long day, and you still have demanding colleagues or demanding patients around you, you can't show that in the same way that you might want to. You have to hide that emotion. So you have to show something you don't really feel on your face, and you have to hide what you really do feel. And then you have to create an emotion that's appropriate for the situation. So you can't suddenly have fits of giggles if somebody tells you something which is deeply personal and difficult for them. So you have to show an appropriate emotion. It's no good just concealing one thing and showing another. It has to be appropriate. So that's what emotional labour is all about. And it's very difficult work to do. So even if you're working in a shop, you still have to do emotional labour. Lots and lots of people who are in a customer service frontline situation have to do emotional labour, particularly when you're working in the NHS. So I really like this little quote here from Phillips and Taylor in 2009, which is, "Ordered to be kind, we're likely to be cruel." And I do think that's particularly true. But But if there's no demands made upon us, then we are likely to discover our generosity. And I think that's true in the whole of life. As an aside, it's Ramadan now. I once I had to go and do some work in Dubai, and it was Ramadan. And I got off the plane, and the only thing I wanted was a drink. And this was at 11 o'clock in the morning, mainly because I couldn't have one. And I do promise you, I am not the kind of woman who drinks at 11 o'clock in the morning. But because I couldn't, I wanted it. And me and a colleague hunted around, not that day, but that evening, for one of the 4 hotels where you could actually get a glass of wine. And I don't think I even finished my glass of wine. It's just I wanted it. Because that not being allowed something you wanted. So here we go. How does that apply to emotional labour? So there are 4 elements to this that really matter, and 4 parts. So if we start off with the core, which is your personality. And so you've got your personality, which is impacted by emotional labour and impacts how you experience it. And then you've got your ability to do genuine acting, that you're coming from an authentic place. And then you've got deep acting, which is you're pulling it as close to the centre of you as you can. You've got surface acting, you just pretend. So let's start with your personality. I'm going to do a bit of talk now. So if we think about personality, we know from research, and any of you who've done a NEO personality profile, which is NEO, that there are 5 main parts to it. And other personality profiles, Myers-Briggs does a little bit of this, but slightly around the edges. It's developed in a different way, because this personality theory was built from the 40s to the 80s by 2 researchers called Costa and McCrae. And they clustered every single emotional word which they dragged out of the dictionary, and they put them into groups. And they said, all right, what are these groups? And we have OCEAN is the acronym. So we've got openness, conscientiousness, which is, thank God it's written down here because I can never spell it, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism, which I prefer to call anxiety. And let's just say a little bit more about these. So openness is you're willing to accept the new. And if you think about that in terms of emotional labour, if it's difficult for you to accept what's new, it's very hard for you to go through change. And there'll be a lot of resistance at your core, which will mean that doing new things will be tough. Now, conscientiousness, you could also describe as drive. And it's that desire to get everything done. And of course, that can tip into perfectionism. And perfectionism is not good for resilience. So perfectionism and resilience have a very bad inverse correlation, meaning the more perfectionist you are, the harder it is to stay permanently resilient. Then we've got extroversion, which is about your sociability and your assertion, and lack of sociability and assertion if you're an introvert. Agreeableness is niceness, and neuroticism, which, as I said, is high anxiety, is also very, very important in terms of resilience. And what we know is that if you've got low openness, high conscientiousness, low extroversion, and high neuroticism, high anxiety, you are much more susceptible to burnout. So that's just for you to think about in yourself and your colleagues. So, what is it that you're seeing around that? Because it may not be helpful. So that's all I want to say about personality. So now let's move into the genuine acting and what that actually is. So when something's really genuine, you buy it, you believe it, it's not a big effort for you to do it, it's just part of who you are. So it's the outside layer, if you like, of personality. It's easy for you. Now, deep acting is when you control your emotions and you make yourself believe that you're enjoying something. And we've all been there. We've all said, all right, I'm just going to buckle up and I'm going to go with this and I'm going to do my best, even though I don't really, really want to be doing this. That is what deep acting is all about. By the way, if you've got any questions, just please do stick them in the chat. So then we've got surface acting. And in surface acting, that is where you fake it. And this generally is where we learn to do, where we have training. And so it's very difficult because, of course, when you're doing training and training people in and around your hospices, you're asking people to use quite often a lower tone of voice, to smile, to be more gentle, to be potentially less assertive, or to be more assertive. So you're teaching people the skills. But when you teach people the skills and they're not internalized and you're expecting something of them, it can have a very negative impact. So I'd like you now just to, I wonder if genuine acting shouldn't be called acting. I think that's a good question. But genuine acting is, maybe it's a term that's not my term. I might just call it being your authentic self. So thank you, St. Christopher's. I think that if it's genuine, it's coming from a real place of integrity, and it's not difficult for you. It is part of who you are. So it's your personality plus your values, your beliefs that are all moving around all that to make it your real authentic self. So if you're a really genuine, caring person and you know who they are, it doesn't feel fake ever. Does that help? Ping me a question if there's anything else. So now I'd just like you to spend 1 minute talking to the person next to you, literally 1 minute. We're not going to do a lot of this. And for you just to say, in a week, what percentage of your time do you think you are in each place? Because it's absolutely crystal clear that you're not going to be your real authentic self in every single situation. So put me in a finance meeting, I might have to do a little bit of deep acting and surface acting because it's not something that has an intrinsic appeal to me. So 1 minute. Okay, so I think that just as a reflection from me is that when I was at a burnout stage, I was doing, I think it must have been 40–50% of my time, I think I was doing surface acting and deep acting. And if I look at my working life now, I think it's about 5 to 10% of my time is having to do deep or surface acting. And that's fine for me because I'm more aware of when I'm doing it, but too much, and it tipped me over the edge, to be honest. So any insights that you want to share, please do stuff them in the chat. So that's emotional labor, and what's really hard about surface acting and deep acting is it takes a huge amount of energy. And we talked when we were thinking about energy about burnout, and there are many causes to burnout. I like this little this little cartoon. Unclear job expectations, overwork, perfectionism. Hello, I hold my hand up to that. Stress, bad leadership, conflict with colleagues. There are 101 reasons for getting into a burnout state, as well as having to do a lot of emotional labor. But emotional labor is the part you use to cover it. And so that is the part that can be so draining and exhausting. So if we consider the types of burnout, there were 3. So there's the frenetic burnout, where you work harder and harder to the point of exhaustion to be successful in your role. And then we've got under challenge burnout, which I am sure that none of you will see, where you just are doing not very much. You're sitting in a corner. Nobody that I know has that these days. And then you get the worn out burnout, where you just have so much to do. You've done the frenetic stuff, and what happens is that work piles up and up and up, and then you have so much to do that you start working way too long, doing very long hours, and whatever you do, it still piles up because actually you're not in a physical place where you can do the work. So burnout behaviors that in others, that you see in others, are associated with venting, right? Anger, all these things that we've got at the bottom, distancing yourself from something, disengagement with colleagues. You might see emotional change, tons of cynicism, neglect of yourself, negative mood and anxiety. So that's some of the burnout behaviors that you might see. But for an individual, what characterises this thing, which is signals of needing emotional first aid, and I really do like the term emotional first aid, and I wish I'd known some of these, we are forgetfulness. So in my acute stage of needing emotional first aid, I couldn't remember whether I'd done things or not, or whether I'd sent emails or I hadn't, and I got very anxious. In fact, I had some panic attacks, but I didn't know that's what they were, with my heart racing and being unable to breathe. I had a headache for 2 months, which I just kind of ignored because that's what I do. Lack of sleep and exhaustion is another one, and the other corollary of that is you sleep a lot but you still don't feel revived. Then you've got these feelings of powerlessness, hopelessness and demotivation, anger, and just feeling worthlessness as well as another part of it, and feeling ineffective. So that's what it's like for the individual. And for those of you who've never come close to this, well done. But these are some of the things that you might look for if you start thinking, what's happening to me? So this TED Talk that I've put at the bottom is a really, really nice one to watch. We're not going to watch it now, but I do recommend. Guy Winch, believe it or not, is a Swede, and he talks about his need and desire for talking about emotional hygiene and how we care for ourselves. We've got physical hygiene, which we're all super used to, but we don't talk about emotional hygiene and how we ask for and get emotional first aid. It's all too easy to go and say, please bandage up my knee, it's bleeding, or I am in distress here because I've broken my arm. And it's very visible, but it's very invisible, generally speaking, when you require emotional first aid or want to offer it to someone else. It's difficult. So what I'd like to do now is I'd like to spend just 5 minutes for you to think and talk about this question. What would it take for me to acknowledge that I need emotional first aid? So I have to acknowledge it in myself and then ask for it in others. And what I would really, really like, I'd love us to share some thoughts in this, because I think this requires some vulnerability, and being vulnerable is difficult. So we're going to have just 5 minutes, and then I'd love to look through what you comment and just share some of that, because I think this is very, very important information for us to share. So 5 minutes. Hi everybody. Something's gone wrong with my chat, so I can't see if you are commenting. So Marie is just getting going next to me, and I'm just hoping that you're having some rich conversations in the room. But what we were talking about in here was that it's very hard to know what you would ask for, because quite often when you go and see your boss, they say, bring me answers, don't bring me problems. And so then it's very difficult to have a conversation about how you're feeling and what emotional first aid you might need, and what are then the words that you use, and can you open a conversation by saying, I'm struggling, and what kind of conversations you're already used to having, because I think it's very difficult if you haven't had an open and honest conversation about yourself, your work and how you're doing. If you've never had that, it's almost impossible to then talk at a deeper level about yourself. I heard someone say yes, and yes. So I think that one of the starting places would be, before you get to this state, to build the relationships that you need to have. And I'm absolutely sure that you've got good mates, colleagues that you work with, who you can take those issues to first, who might then act as intermediaries on your behalf. So if you want to come off mute and make any comments, that would be great, and let's have a couple of minutes to do that. Nobody wants to say anything? Okay, so I tell you what we'll do then. If nobody wants us to say anything, oh, Marie, you just need to turn your sound off. Let's do the next bit. So, oh, thank you very much. Once you've had burnout, you're better at recognizing the behaviors. Yes, I've done it twice though. You'd think I'd get better. I now would absolutely recognize it. I think the first time I thought, oh, you know, I'm managing, and then the second time it just went bang. And I was then able to take the time that I needed to look after myself, although it was hard at the beginning. So one of the things that tell others what's got and to help you. Yep, that's absolutely right. And I think if we share the behaviours that lead us to understand that we need emotional first aid or what other people need, is very helpful. Certainly in my working world, we had never shared any of that information. So yeah, St. Christopher's, thank you very much. Irritability. So if you don't understand what the symptoms are, and it's almost impossible, because you should go to somebody and say, well, you seem to be very irritable, are you getting headaches? Do you feel emotionally low? Are you emotionally labile, as a psychologist might say? That's tough. So if you have one, whatever, if you sorry, I lost what site if you have one refers to. A boss, okay. So one of the things that's also difficult but essential is to raise a conversation with somebody. And one of the ways that I like to do it and have been successful in the past is by asking somebody, what's that like for you at the moment? And then saying, and then what's that like? And then pushing them until they start telling you. So, and then if they can't say it's like, you say, I'm looking for an answer which starts with it's like. And then they'll give you an analogy for how they're feeling. And when it's bleak, you're getting something that allows you then to open a conversation up. So I like using analogies. Sometimes when people are very distressed, they just can't do it. But I found that it's a way that works for me. So what I'd love to do now is for us all to share about how we might open a conversation when we spot the signs in somebody else. So let's spend 5 minutes thinking about that. And again, if we can put it into chat, invisible chat, that would be great, because we'll be able to pick it all up afterwards and share it. So another 5 minutes for a conversation. All right, anybody, any good ideas from Willowbrook? Any good ideas from you guys at St. Luke's? Or Peace? Rowcroft, tell us what you're finding out. Are you okay? Yes, are you okay? That's a very good question to ask people. Are you okay? Anything else that we can ask people? We had in here, take people to one side, make sure that they've eaten something. Ask them about their sleep. Thank you. I've noticed, yes, you don't seem your normal self. That's good. Okay. If you want to unmute yourself, do. Do you need someone to help you? Yep, that's a good one. What's really bugging you right now? Okay, what's the impact of blah, blah, blah for you? Mm-hmm. So do you remember we were doing positive questions? Our opener would be, I wanted to take an opportunity to talk. Yep, that's good. So this is where using positive questions can help someone. Let's go for a coffee. How are you doing? I like that. Thank you very much. So these are all really useful things, and it's quite simple language. It's not a question of language, it's really a question of courage, isn't it? Courage to embrace somebody literally and metaphorically, so that we can say that we are noticing something about them and having the courage to have that conversation, because it's not the words that you're coming up with that are difficult words, but very few people, I mean, will reject ultimately a call for help. We're always scared to ask for it. We love to give it, but we're always scared to ask for it ourselves. So working as a team, you got used to reading each other's moods and knowing how to support each other. That's fantastic also. So thank you very much for all your comments. We've thought today about what burnout is, what the signs are of recognizing it, and thinking about how can we reframe this as emotional aid so that we know what to recognize in ourselves, what to look for in others, and then how to support them and ask for help. And I do want to leave you with that thought, which is that the one thing that we are often scared to do is to ask for help, but what everybody else likes to do is to give it. And if you want to watch the TED video, which is a few slides back, do so. I really highly recommend it to you. It's 20 minutes long. If you can't probably click on the link now, but he's called Guy Winch, and he's talking about emotional first aid. So you can easily find him. And meanwhile, here are two papers for you to have a look at. So one is an academic paper, and the other one, sorry guys, it does say it's a blog about high-octane women, but may I say it applies equally to men. So it's not just for women, it's for all of us. But I just thought it was a very simple, easy to read blog. So any more comments, please do stick them in the chat. And thank you very much for coming in today and talking about something which is difficult for many people. And look forward to seeing you the next time. Bye.